Today I want to talk a little bit about opportunities, decision making, and art directing yourself. So last time we started with a drawing, right? We started with that. That's a totally common approach of drawing something and then finishing it. I often get asked, how does it work with portfolio pieces? Of course, you can make a pretty image and you can show that you can paint a pretty image, right? What is really important in your image is not only the mood and not only that you can paint. It's also important that you tell a story and that you also maybe communicate, and it's always a plus that you have a good sense for design, or that you at least have a sense for design. So this is our color thumb we left off last time. We're going to art direct ourselves today, and that's also a little bit the topic of today, is like how to art direct yourself. This is a very important skill, I believe. Also Sid Mead said that once, if you're not familiar with Sid Mead, and he was one of the most influential and craziest designer we had. He worked on so many things, and he said that you have to be more than one person when you make an image. You have to be the person who makes the image, you have to be the person who's observing the image from the outside, you have to be the person who's directing the image. You have to have this skill of basically directing yourself when you want to make a portfolio alone. So the best way for this is to be very, very, very self-reflective and honest, and this is super hard. And it is something you really need to learn. So for this, we're going to take our image and we're going to destroy it. Write down and point out what we need to work on, what we can improve, and what we can actually design. So let's say you do the same as we did last time. So you start with a sketch and then you do a color thumb. And let's say you spend like 2-3 hours on the whole process of making a line art and blocking it in. And so the next step now would be to stop, take a break, scale it down, and then look at it from a completely outside perspective. You need to step away, maybe flip it a couple times, take a walk, grab a bite, and then come back and ask yourself, what do I want to tell? And we're talking here about story, of course, because story is king. Story is the most important thing when it comes to making an image. So let's take a look at the image together. So what do we have here? We have the dude sitting in front, right? So we have either looking at us, so he's either looking at the camera, or he can look at something which is in the foreground, something optional, something where we have maybe a opportunity or a possibility to tell even more story. Let's call it story key. We also have this amazing tree, right? This huge thing which takes a lot of space in our image. Then we have, of course, the city in the back, and of course the city has buildings. I just indicated a couple flying things here. We maybe have some planes, or we have some airships. Thought about that we're going to have something a little bit closer than the city, and I thought maybe this is his residence or his workshop. This here could be a second story key. It was just a little doodle, could be a plane, could be also an airship, could be whatever we want to design. And then we also have, of course, a lot of opportunity here. I remember on the line art were also ships here. Like I think I just sketched in some ships in the back. And then of course we also have this ground surface here. So this also gives us some sort of opportunity to tell a story about what's next. What are things we maybe also need to adjust? And that's something you can always do. You can play with scale. So we could, for example, try to scale this guy up. We could see if we maybe scale up the foreground also. The house here in the midground up, play with the scaling of the city, absolutely crucial. And I really want to emphasize that, and I want really that if you can take out one thing of today's stream, that you make decisions when you make your images. Because again, a lot of people don't. They just paint. They just paint what they want or what I think about, which is fine, nothing bad about it. So what's next? We took it apart. We say, okay, we have all these possibilities, but what does it mean? So what we need is clarity. An outside person going to see our image for the first time. So we want a clear read of what is the story, what are the intentions of the things we put in the image. Think about movies. Think about if you watch a movie, you see a scene or a frame, sometimes for only 2 to 3 seconds. And that's the reason why also silhouettes are super important in movies. The eye is immediately reading it's a person, or it's a city, it's a spaceship. These things are made visually on purpose that you immediately understand, okay, this is this. And that's why we need to work on that. What is the important thing we want to design first? What is the thing we want to do? What is the story we want to tell? So what I thought, I want to tell a story of a city which is basically known for a city that builds airships or planes. And the dude in the foreground, or the character in the foreground, is a guy who is basically building ships, or he's trying to reinvent ships. He's basically sitting in the outside in front of his house. So we have the story key here, this house, or his house. He's looking at things, at nature, to get inspired, build new things, so to speak. What could be here in the foreground to inspire him, right? Could it be a plant? Could it be a mushroom? Could it be something that got floated through the wind, which is basically as an inspiration for his next flying device? I would always advise write everything down. So you maybe had the experience already, you make an image, and at some point you have no freaking clue of how this thing, whatever you do right now, is going to look like. So the question is then, what do? You take a step back. We have the dude, so before we design the dude, or want to start with at least a drawing of the dude, we need to give some boundaries to that. We say, let's say he's old, he is building flying devices, gets inspired by nature. There's a question, how much of these design decisions and story elements did you know when you started the sketch? I had no idea about it. I had no idea. I was just drawing right away. No, I did not thought about a story at all in the beginning. You can go really deep with that. It also depends on your time, how much time you want to spend. When we come to the city, let's say we talk about the city right now. What is the purpose of it? Because a lot of cities, of course, they have a purpose. And in the past, in history, they had also a purpose. What is the purpose? Could be for trading, have a military purpose. The next step is on, let's say it is a city specialized on crafts. What are the buildings they have? So let's say they have forges, but these forges have to run 24/7. So how did they design those forges that they run 24/7? And what did they use for that? So to speak, our first planning step. So what we want to do now is we start, how Mark Twain said it, managing complex tasks by breaking them down into small parts, and then start with the first one. So we have to decide what we are going to design first. This is basically here our roadmap. When we design the tree, when we design the plane, when we design the city, and everything is going into the full, we have our image basically done. And all we need to do is then bring it in. Think about a full story. And at the end you have this establishing shot, or this image with everything coming together. Then you have a round portfolio piece. What should we do first? I'm completely open to what do you want to see. Any one of you is interested in one-on-one mentorship with me, please check out my website, janosch-art.zone. If you could take something out of the stream today, I would be happy to, if you give it a thumbs up on the YouTube video, and feel free to subscribe and follow.